to today's session. Thank you for joining. For those that stayed back on the call, thank you very much as well. To our followers and our listeners, thank you for sticking with us all this while to today's session being the 12th episode of our Tech Thursday, of our Thursday Tech Talk rather. So last week we kicked off with our Power Platform series where two of our speakers took us through the introductory session of Power Platform. Trust me, that session was really, really insightful and it was an eye opener as well. So if you are not in that session, not to worry, we had all our sessions recorded, including the one of last week, and today's session recorded and available for you on our YouTube channel. So today is not going to be an exception. We continue from where we started last week. Kayode Ajayi will be our speaker for today and will be taking us through how we can work with various functions and components on Power Apps. And he's also going to dive into a demo. We're going to build a simple Power Apps for us. So he's going to be starting with an highlight of what we did last week before taking us through the variables, function, and components, how to use variables, functions, and components in Power Apps. So before I hand over to him, I'll just go through our housekeeping rules as usual. So I want to crave your indulgence that this call is currently being recorded. And also if you have questions, you can pen them down, wait for the question and answer segment so that you don't forget your question, or you can just wait at that time, you use the raise your hand feature, or you simply drop your question on the chat window. As we go further into the session, I will also be dropping a short link to a survey for you to fill. Tell us how we're doing, give us your feedback so that we can improve on them. Also, I'll be dropping our various social media handles on the chat window for you to follow us, like us, reshare, and be well informed on sessions like this. And if you have possible topics you want us to educate you on, you can also let us know as well. So at this point, I'll be handing over to Kayode Ajayi and you have an insightful session. Thank you. Kayode, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Good evening, everyone. I hope you've had a wonderful time since we met last week. So today we are going to be going further in our Microsoft Power Platform series by discussing variables, functions, and components in Power Apps. As we stated last week, or as we discussed last week, Power Apps really allows you to create applications very easily and quickly using a drag and drop low-code / no-code interface. So today we are going to be seeing how we can implement logic in our Power Apps by using variables, functions, and we are going to be taking a look at components, which is fairly new in the Power Apps ecosystem, and we are going to be looking at it and we'll see how it is. Once again, my name is Kayode Ajayi. I'm a Power Platform / Azure AI developer with Ha-Shem, and this is my bio and my link to my Instagram and Twitter profile. All right, so today, as Catherine stated, our agenda is firstly to discuss what we said last week. So just like a reiteration of what we said last week. So we are going to be going through a form of highlight from last week. And we are going to be, then after that, we'll be looking at variables and functions in Power Apps. Then we are going to discuss components in Power Apps. So let's go into it. So the highlight from last week. Now, last week we discussed and we said Power Apps is a fantastic tool that can allow you to quickly create incredible, powerful, and visually engaging applications to replace your manual business processes. So in your organization, for example, you could have a lot of paperwork, you could have a lot of things that you have to do, repetitive tasks and things like that. So by using Power Apps, you can easily create applications that would really replace these manual processes. And we are in the smart age, so you begin to do things smarter and more effectively. Power Apps is a low-code / no-code application platform that empowers everyone to be able to create professional applications, regardless of background, with an ever-growing collection of incredible features. Now, last week, we demoed a simple, and I said the application is simple, not because it's actually simple, but because Power Apps makes it simple. So, and that was an application that could get a list of all the cars a company had. So it was for a car dealer company. And the application could get all the cars, it could get the images, and it could we quickly created an application with 3 screens where you were allowed to view the cars they had, and you were allowed to edit, and you were allowed to add new cars. So very simple, and we were able to do that quickly under 10 minutes. So you can, with Power Apps, you can create standard professional applications and without needing to have an extensive or any programming knowledge. With Power Apps, developers and not technical users can build applications from selectable templates. And last week, I showed us some templates that you can just quickly build and reverse engineer to suit your business needs. Power Apps features a drag and drop functionality. So you don't have to type much code. You just drag what you need and you get it on your screen. And with the drag and drop interface, you can quickly build your application. Power Apps has a familiar look, so it's not something that is entirely strange. If you've used Excel, if you've used PowerPoint, you're quite familiar with how the Power Apps interface is going to look. And Power Apps allows you to connect to external data sources and to store data directly inside the app using CDS. So today, as I said, we're going to be looking at variables, components, and functions in Power Apps. So, let's just have an overview before we go into the demo, because it's at the point of the demo that's where you're going to be seeing a lot of these things in actions. So just for background knowledge, what are variables? Variables are names you give to computer memory locations which are used to store values in a computer program. Now, if you go back to your basic English, when they say something is variable, or when they say something is a variable, it means it's not constant. It means it can change. So bringing that same concept into the field of application development, variables allows you to store data without any change. Sorry about that. Variables allows you to store data in the computer memory, and you can change them anytime you like it. So, and as we continue in the demo, you're going to see more of that in action. So in Power Apps, there are 3 types of variables. We have the global variables, the context variables, and collection. And we're going to see all of that in action. So, but just as an explanation, global variables, they're very simple to use, and they hold number. You could use it to hold number, text, booleans, record, table, etc. And when we get into the demo, I'm going to show you what each and every one of these means, what we mean by number, text, boolean. Now, generally, we're going to be familiar with what a number is, what a text is. But how about a boolean? How about a record? How about a table? We are going to look into those things briefly. Then context variables. Now, they are great for passing values to a screen, much like parameters to a procedure in other languages can be referenced from only one screen. So the thing about context variables, you can also call them local variables because they are only available on a single screen. In other words, when you navigate to, you can't access them any longer. Unlike global variables can be accessed in all screens of your application. It's available globally. Context variables can be accessed just on a single screen. So depending on your use case, you might not need to create a global variable. You might just need to use a context variable. Now, and finally, collections. Collections hold a table that can be referenced from anywhere in the app. So if you're familiar with other programming languages, collections can be saying something like array. You know, you can store, you can have a form of a table structure using collections, and we're going to see that in action. And now functions. Very simply put, functions take some parameters, it performs some operation, and it returns a variable. So for example, if you look at a function here, square root, what the function does is, it just, over here, as you can see, we say 25. This square root function, we say 25, and it returns 5. We're going to see something like that in action. So, but just simply looking at this, here 25 refers to the parameter. So functions will always ask you for parameter. And Power Apps really makes this very easy to use, because while you type your functions, it's going to tell you suggestions on the kind of parameters you are to supply that function for it to work properly. Then it returns a variable. So functions are modeled after Microsoft Excel functions. So if you have used functions in Microsoft Excel, then this is not going to be strange to you, though we are going to be having some additions. Then Power Apps components. Components are reusable building blocks for Canvas applications, so that app makers can create custom controls to use inside an app or across apps using a components library. So what do I mean by that? For example, in your application, you have a navigation bar where your logo is displayed. While you're creating your application, you wouldn't want to create the same navigation bar on all pages of your application. That is going to be a whole lot of work, and it doesn't give a lot of room for changes. For example, if your logo changes, that means you have to go to every single page to change the logo. That is a lot of work, and that's why components were introduced. So components allows you to just create a building block. You just create one, then you can use it in several pages, and using components libraries, you can also use that same component in other applications. So as I said, as you can see here, component libraries are containers of component definitions that make it easy to discover and search components, publish components, notify app makers of available component updates. So for example, if you have components in your components library, every app maker within that environment are going to have access to those components, and they can use it in their applications. So components are just there to make your application building faster and more effective. Then Power Apps Components Framework, we talked about this last week. It's actually for advanced users, but it allows professional developers to create code components for model-driven and Canvas applications to provide enhanced user experience for the users to work with data on forms, views, and dashboards. So as I said last week, you could have a custom solution you're trying to build that Power Apps doesn't provide out of the box. Then using Power Apps Components Framework, you can actually extend the functionality and do more with Power Apps. And the advantages of this is it supports modern web practices. So you'll be using the general concept you use in web development, the languages you're familiar with, and it optimizes for performance. It encourages reusability, and it bundles all the files into a single solution file. So that's talking about the Power Apps Components Framework. So this week is all about demo, and immediately we're just going to go into a demo, and we're going to see how we can use our variables, functions, and components in Power Apps. So at this point, I'm going to share my browser screen, and so if you're following along, you can just visit make.powerapps.com to get started. Okay, so now for you to be able to create applications, you need to visit make.powerapps.com and wait for the page to load. So now the page is loading. I hope we can see my Power Apps screen, not the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, we can see your Power Apps screen.
All right, beautiful. Okay, so we're just going to go from, just going to do what we did last week to have a base start for some people who might not have been here last week. So last week, we uploaded a file to our OneDrive, and it contained a list of cars. It was an Excel file. It contained a list of cars. So now we are going to be using that file to create our application. So this is it. It contains the name, category, price, image, and details about the car. So using that, we're just going to come here, click on other data sources. So as we said last week, Power Apps allows you to connect to a lot of data sources. So we already have a connection here, but if you don't have a connection, you can just create a new connection and you're going to choose OneDrive for business. So we're not going to do that right now. So we're just going to click on our existing connection and it's going to show us these cars and we'll click on that. Then it shows us the table in the cars file. All right, so Power Apps is going to do the magic and generate a simple 3-paged application for us. And the application, you can just use it immediately. So last week, someone asked a question about mobile, that is it restricted to mobile? So then we answered that it wasn't. So just a further explanation, because you can see by default, this generates a mobile view. So if the view you want is, you don't want a mobile view, you could just come here to File, and under Settings here, you can say Screen Size Orientation. Then here you can see this is a mobile, but you can change it to landscape. All right, so by the time you apply it, I'm not going to do that now because of time, but by the time you apply it, it's going to switch over to a desktop view. So you can use that view to create applications for the desktop. All right, so this is the simple 3-paged application that was created to us by Power Apps using the Excel, as a data source. So as we saw last week, you can search. So for example, you're searching for a Mercedes, you can search and it streamlines it to what you're searching. And you can view, so probably we like this Mercedes-Benz, the GLK class 2013 gray. You can click on it to view the details of this. And as the app creator, you can edit it and you can add a new car. All right. So that's what these views look. That's what these views are about. Okay, so but going further, let's create a new screen so that we can explore what variables, components, and functions are. So right here, we're just going to click on New Screen. So as you can see in the pop-up, it says it adds a new screen. If you saw the pop-up over there, add a new screen. All right. So we're just going to create a blank screen. Then let me zoom in so you can see what's going on clearly. All right, so now you can see as we create a new screen, here, this is our tree view. And as I said last week, it shows a hierarchy of your applications. So now you can see there's nothing under this screen one. So you can double click to rename controls. You can double click to rename things. So for example, we just want to call this screen, let's just call it likes screen. We'll see why I called it that later on, because I just want to create a simple functionality that when someone views a screen, we're just going to add a button, and such that once you like a particular product, it's going to show up on a list here. So for example, users can be able to know the particular cars that the customers like the most, and they could use that as suggestions for other customers. So depending on your use case, you can create anything. But our main focus is discussing variables, functions, and components. So let's just get straight into that. So as I said last week, you can insert elements. You can either do it here or you can use this plus button. So, and you can also come here. You can see it says add an item from the insert pane or connect to data. All right. So we're just going to add an item. Let's just add a label, or let's just add a gallery. Okay, let's add a label for now. Later on, we'll change it to a gallery. Okay, so we're just going to click on label, and now you can see it shows here label 1. So to explore what variables are, let's just create something like a simple calculator. Okay, so our calculator is going to have 2 input fields. So Now, if you scroll down, let me just quickly run through this. If you scroll down, you can see different kinds of text you can use. Under input, you can see button, text input, drop down, combo box, date picker, under media, camera. So depending on your use case, you can go through this to get what you need. So right now we need an input and we need a text input so that users can type into our application. All right. So we're just going to create a simple calculator that adds two numbers, okay? So that is the first text input, and we're going to create another text input for the second number. So now this is a canvas app, meaning you have full control over the interface. So unlike model-driven apps where you have little control. So this is going to be our sum. This is going to be our output. And let me add a button. And it's just going to create that. Okay, so I guess it's network that is making it take so much time. So let's just give it time. Oh yeah, it's here. All right, so this is our button. Okay, so let's just try and balance things out a little bit and pretend like this is a real application. Okay, so right now, okay, we have input, text input one, text input, button. So over here, it's always good to rename, it's always good to name your application because you never know, especially if you are working in an organization, someone else might want to look at your application. So having the proper names will help make it easier for the person to look at it and understand what's going on. So let's just name this input one. Input one. So generally, people do something like label to show it is a label underscore input one. But you can name it however you wish. But let me just follow the trend. And here, let's just say, okay, no, this is not in label. So we're just going to say input underscore one. And here we're just going to say input underscore two. And here, this is a label. So we're just going to say label underscore output. So output. All right. So this is our, okay, let's wait for that to come up. So this is our button. We're just going to click on, we're just going to say sum. So let me create another label just for a visual aid so that people can understand what's going on in our application. So let's space this out a little bit. So forgive me, I'm spending a lot of time on visuals, but a lot of times for you to get people to use your application, it actually needs to look good. So, all right. So now let's clear this. So over here, properties, now this is default. This just says, okay, what's going to show by default? So we don't want anything to show there by default. So let's just clear that out. And let's just clear this out. Okay. So now looking at variables, I said that there are three types of variables. We have the global variables, the context variables, and collections. Okay, but for now, let's just do something. So Power Apps allows you to be able to access data another way, not using variables, and we're going to see that now. So if you click on this button here, and now, as I said last week, each control has their own property. So for example, this is a button, and there's a property we like to use in buttons, and that is the onSelect property. You will notice that when you create a button, this property is displayed by default. So what that just means is when you select a button, what happens? So the ones you see on, the properties you see on here is talking about an event. So this onSelect is talking about an event by the user. When the user selects this button, what happens? So by default, it just says false. But we want to do something different. So let's just say, so in order to do that, so we could just come over here And over here, we could just come here in this text property. So without using the button, first of all, let's just see the basic way that Power Apps provides for us to be able to access data. So we could just say now, this one, we called it input underscore one. So we could just come here and say input underscore one, okay, plus input underscore two, okay. So you wonder what happened. Now, if you notice, let's just see something in the visuals here. Okay. Okay. So you notice here is highlight the first one. Okay, sorry about that. This is the pop-up is obstructing the view. Okay, so let's come back to this text here. So let me zoom out. So here you notice that if you come back here under the text property, if you see this, you can see this green is highlighted and you can see it. So what Power Apps is telling us here is, oh, input underscore one, I know this is the component you're talking about. Input underscore two, I know this is the component you're talking about. Then if you look at the colors, you'll see it's actually color coded. So that's just telling you that Power Apps knows what you are referring to. So very easily, we've just said whatever is typed in input underscore one, we want to add it with whatever is typed in input underscore two. So if you just play this application right now and we type 3 here and we type 5 here, you can see Power Apps has already computed it and it has said this is 8. So here, technically, we've not used any variable. So that's why this didn't show up on the list of variable types, because this is not really a variable, but it's just a way Power Apps provides for you to be able to access and manipulate data. And this is very, very useful. Okay, so, but now let's just go away from that. And since we're talking about variables, let's just use a variable. So we're going to start with global variables. And so for us to do that, we're just going to come to the onSelect property. So you notice that that first solution didn't require us using a button. So it was just computed automatically. But now let's just, for us to use a button, so because sometimes in your application, you might not just want things to go on automatically like that. You want the user to interact with your application. So by adding a button. So let's just come to the onSelect property of the button. And here you notice that properties that are active or that you've edited is going to show black here. It's going to be highlighted black. So these properties, they already have some values that are there by default. So, and if you add your property, it's also going to be highlighted black. So now you can see the onSelect is not highlighted. But right now we're just going to say, so to be able to use global variables, we are going to use a function. So now you can see about it together. So we are talking about functions and we're talking about variables at the same time. So this is a set function, and it allows you to set a global variable. So I said Power Apps usually suggest the kinds of value you are supposed to put. So it really makes it easy. So for example, here, up here, you can see it says set variable value. So what this is telling, and here variable says, okay, variable, the name of a global variable. So let's just name this variable, let's just name it sum. And the way variables work is if the variable has not been created before, it's going to create it. And if it has been created before, it's going to update it. Okay, so right now, before now, we didn't have a variable called sum, but it's going to create it once we click the button. So let's just see, and it's saying value. Value, any Power Apps value, including a number, text, record, table, or an object, the global variable is set to. Okay, so that's a lot of talk. But right here, what we just want to do is we want to take the value of this input underscore one, and we want to take the value of this input underscore 2 and we want to sum it up. So that's exactly what we are going to do. We're just going to come here and say input underscore 1. Now you can see Power Apps is already suggesting it to you. And so once you click on that, then you can say plus input underscore 2. Okay. Oh, sorry, my network just. So sometimes you might be working, and if your network, because we are working online, if your network is not so good, you can just see some things disappearing. So right now, something that's happened. So just know that it happens sometimes. All right. Okay. So now we don't have any errors. So that's good. So sometimes you see some underline. Some things are underlined. Some things are underlined red. That is a sign of an error. So when you see that, and as I said, the app checker here, very useful tool. It will also show you when there are errors. So looking at this, what have we said? We've said set the value of variable sum. So now we already have sum as a variable, and you can see it's popping up down here. It's available for applications. Okay, so we have set it to say input underscore 1 dot text. So what is the text that has been typed in this input? You know, input underscore 1 is a control, and it has a text property, and that text is what has been typed into it. So we are getting access to that property, and we are summing it up, and same thing for input underscore 2. So, and okay, so let's just run it and let's see. Okay, so here, let's just say 2. Let's just say 2. And if you click on the button, wow, what's happening? We can't see anything. And the reason why we can't see anything is because, yes, we already have a variable and it has actually uploaded the value. If you come here to view, you can see collections, you can see variables. So let's just view the variables that we have currently. Okay, now you can see, select a variable. Now you can see we have sum. And when you click on this, okay, you can see it already knows that we have a sum. The sum value is 4, which is 2 plus 2. But what has happened is we have not assigned that variable to any control to view. So we are just going to come to the text property of this, our output, label output. Under the text property, we're just going to come here and we are just going to type sum. So what we have said here in essence is whatever the value of the variable is, assign it to this text. Okay, and one cool thing about Power Apps is you can see here it's showing you it has evaluated it. So a lot of times within your interface, if you pay attention to this place, you will see that Power Apps has actually evaluated some of these things for you, and you can view the value. So with that, you can easily troubleshoot and know what is wrong in your application. Okay, so now if you just come here, 4 plus 4 plus 6, okay. So unlike before, you can see it's not updated automatically. But now once we click on a variable, it's updated. So that's very cool. Very, very cool. So you can have that 2 plus 3, 5. Beautiful. So that is a global variable. So very quickly, because I have my eye on the time, let me just go into collection and let's look at collection and let's see what collections are about. So for example, in this our simple calculation, we want to have simple calculator, we want to have a form of a history. Okay, so first off, on this screen, let me create a gallery. Or okay, no, let's not do that first. Let's come on this button. So we've discussed variable. Now let's talk about collection. So let's come to the onSelect property of this button. So we're just going to clear this out. You have fulfilled your destiny. So in the onSelect property, we're just going to come here and call another function. So Power Apps has numerous functions. If we are to go into every one of these functions, we are not going to leave this place. But the essence of this session is to give you an idea of how functions work and to make it more convenient and to make it more accessible for someone who is not exposed to this before now. All right, so here you can see collection, and here it says a new or existing collection to augment. Okay, so basically what it's just saying is what is the name of the collection. So you now, before we do that, now you can see it say cast list. It recognizes that as a collection, and which is our data source. So, but now we're just going to create a new collection and let's just call it history. Okay, then we'll put comma and it says item. So remember we said collection is similar to a table. So we're just going to have one column and we're just going to say call this first column. We'll call it previous sums. Okay, so it's going to give us an error there. I'm going to explain to you why. So previous sums and previous sums, and we're going to say, okay, what is previous sum? So let's just give it what we are just going to say previous sums, we are just going to say inputs. So similar to what we did before, input underscore one. So let's just come here, input underscore one. Okay, I think my internet is taking time to catch up. Okay, let me just join this to take away this. Oh, yeah, my internet. Sorry, you can see everything disappeared again. Previous sums, and we're just going to put a colon. And so what is the value that we're going to supply to previous sums? So input underscore one dot text, and okay, let's just add let's just make it a variable. Let me see. So okay, so I have duplicate braces here. Okay. So we're just going to say input underscore one. Okay, now perhaps is happy dot text does input underscore one underscore two dot text. Okay, so now unlike variables, now let's see. Okay, so here and in this over here, now you can see that it's saying there's an error here. So once this pops up, you can just come here and say editing formula bar. So now this recognizes that we've deleted some, so this is not going to work again. Right here, we're just going to, what's the name of our collections? We called it previous if I can type. So it's supposed to pop up previous. Okay, let me just copy the name here. So here, previous sum, and okay, yeah, because now previous sum is a collection, is not a single value. That's why. So let's just delete this. That was I said we're going to add a gallery, so let's just insert a gallery. And so the different thing about collection, the difference between collections and variable is that collection creates a form of a date or a form of a table, and you can add multiple values. Okay. History. Oh, cool. So let's just delete this. Now this is just a default. Let's just, okay. Let me just come here, add a vertical gallery. Okay, and we're just going, so it's going to ask for a data source here. We're just going to come here and say history. Okay, so but what's happening here is our data source doesn't contain an image. And so if we come back here, so let's just remove the subtitle. Let's just say okay. So now we're just going to clear all of that. Those errors came up because we deleted the image. So it's just a, all right, so now we don't have any errors there. So if you come over here, under here where it says title, and let's see the width, let's just set it to 100. Okay, we can expand that. So your controls also are accessible. You can expand them using the view. But here, let's just go to the text property. Okay, by default, it has looked at our data source and it has recognized previous sum. Let's run this application. Let's see what's going on. So if we come here, I will say 5, and we come here and we say 6. We click on the button, 11. If you come here and you say 1, and you come here and you say 8, you click on the button, 9. Okay, so this is having, so this is just a demo of what you can do with collections. And if you come over here and you say view collections, so now I clicked on collections, view collections. Now you can see here is a preview of the first 5 items. So here is just going to show you the first 5 items of your collections, and here it's just showing that okay, these are the things that we currently have in our collections. So you can see, unlike a variable, a collection, you can have multiple values. And the good thing about collections is you could get different. So you're not limited to one column. Now this is just a single column. You can add other columns depending on your use case. So now anytime you are in a control and you see this suggestion, over here in our suggestions, you can see item, then you see comma, dot, dot, dot. What this means is you can add numerous items. So this is a single item. Okay, I've deleted this other one by mistake. Okay, so this is a single item. So you could have another item to record a different value. So for example, you want to know who is the user that, okay, now it's just going to select the same. So let's just say user. So for example, you have an application that has different users. So you want to be able to store, okay, who is the user that's made this calculation? So Power Apps provides a function called user. So you could just say user dot full name, and that's going to get the name of the person who is logged on to the application. So now that we have that in our collection, we could come back to our gallery and we could add a new label. So we could just come to insert. Oh, our time is fast spent. We could just come to insert. And now you notice one thing in the gallery control is you just edit one portion and it's replicated in other aspects of the application or other aspects of the gallery. So you can see we have access to just this part, and whatever we do here is going to show in the other options of the gallery. Okay, so wow, it has even recognized it by itself. So using this item just tells you what are the fields that are available in your data source. So for example, if I say this item dot is going to give us a list of the columns available, and now you can see the new column we just created, user, and previous sum. So let's just say user, and okay, so now it's happy. And then when we come here and we say 6 and we say 4, okay, so all right, so you can see it's giving us the name and the name of the user. Okay, so that's components, and there's so much more you can do with components, and it allows you to do a lot. oh, did I say components, collections? So it allows you to do a lot. So in the next few minutes, let's just look at components. So forgive me because I just treated global variables, but a lot of times you'll be using global variables. So I think that is good enough. Later on, as we create applications, you're going to see context variables in action. Okay, so components. So over here, you can just see screen components, and here you could just add a new component. So let's just, what could this component be? Let's just call it, let it just be, probably we just like to greet our users on every page. And let's just add a text label. So now you can see new component, nothing is under it. So once you create a text, so similar to what is on your screen. So let's just come here and let's just say our text, let's just say hello, hello. Then we're going to say and. Now, and is a way you can use to concatenate. What concatenating means is adding strings together, okay? So we could just say, so probably on every page of our application, we want to greet our user. All right. So now you can see it has gone to figure out my name. So hello, Kayode Ajayi. So let's just call this a greeting component. So rather than, oh, sorry that I've taken a lot of time for the question and answer. Okay, so but right now we have a component, a greeting component, which is available on every screen of our app, which we can use anywhere, anytime we like. So let's just come here and to every screen, let's just add this component. So let's just come to this place. So under here, for you to be able to gain access to that, you just come over here to custom and you can see it here, greeting component. So you could just, and okay, now you can see the component is there. Now, concerning hierarchy, let's just bring it to the top. This is our browse screen, and you can see it's here at the bottom. So let's just bring it to the top. So to do that, we'll come here to reorder, and we'll just say send to front. Okay, so now it's at the front. So, and you can also adjust the size, and now you can see, without having to write the code here, you can just import the component. And on this our page, you could just insert that same component. So custom, greeting, and there you have it. The component is here. So in case you just have a change, maybe you don't want to make it hello again, you want to make it good day, you could just come here and you could just say good day, as if I spelled it correctly. And right here, you just see it is changed already. Okay, so that's component, and I believe that's where we're going to round it up for today. So the next few minutes, let me just hand over to Catherine so you can ask your questions. I really hope this has been a wonderful segment. So, Catherine.
All right, thank you, Kayode, for the insightful session. Thank you very much. Our listeners, thank you for your time, and thank you for staying back on the call. So we've got into our question and answer segment. So if you have questions, please, you can get it rolling. You can drop it on the chat window, or you can just use the raise your hand feature to ask a question. Do we have questions? Or we need more clarification on what Kayode has taken us through on Power Platform, Power Apps rather. Okay, in the absence of no question, that shows that we all have been well informed on today's topic on using, working with various functions and components in Power Apps. Thank you very much, Kayode, for that session once again, and thank you, listeners. Don't forget to fill the survey on the chat window. Give us your feedback so that we can make necessary adjustments. And also, please follow us on our social media handles that I've dropped also on the chat window. So I look forward to seeing all of you next week. We'll be having yet another insightful session on our Power Platform series. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.